Remember a while back we spoke about a potential 4080 Ti coming out with maybe 20 gigabytes of VRAM? Well, we have some more rumors coming out, and of course we always take them with a grain of salt, but it gives us a chance to kind of just speculate on what's possible and where new GPUs actually make sense in the market. So let's talk about what's going on here. Three different Nvidia GPUs, a 4070 Super, 4080 Super, and of course a 4070 Ti Super, which is a little bit weird. How many GPUs can you really fit in that small gap? But Nvidia has done it before. I mean, the last Super GPU, you have to go all the way back to RTX 20 series. But this is why I think this makes sense this generation. It saves Nvidia from having to release an entirely new product line, like for example, a 50 series, like a 5090, which eventually will come. It allows them to tweak certain things that aren't really working out too well in the market. And now let's hear a word from our sponsor, VIP-CDKdeals.com, a Windows 10 Pro CD key. Add to cart, you put in code CC20. This will also work on Windows 11. You want to go into your settings in Windows, change and adjust your CD key, click activate, and now let's go back to the video. So let's start off at the 4070 Super. When the original 4070 came out, $599. It wasn't the best value, but it also wasn't the worst value in the lineup. It actually got some, like, let's say, middle of the road reviews. People didn't absolutely hate it, first of all. Now, after AMD released their 7800 XT, that's where we start to have a bit of a problem, because that GPU starts at $499 with 16 gigabytes of VRAM, and that leaves the 4070 at $599 with only 12 gigabytes of VRAM, a little bit lacking. Obviously, we've had sales since then. Even recent sales brought that 4070 down to as low as like $499, which of course AMD is going to do a sale too and drop their 7800 XT. And then you get into that murky sort of question, Nvidia or AMD? Obviously, most people do go towards Nvidia for some valid reasons, but AMD has definitely been really going, getting a lot of market share the last several years, a lot more than they used to have before, especially in that mid-range to high-end GPU market. So if Nvidia releases a 4070 Super, it allows them to not only sell the older stock of 4070s easily under $500. If they already had a sale down to that amount, they could easily compete with AMD in that level. I think even if the 7800 XT does perform better than a 4070 in rasterization, because of ray tracing, the Nvidia name, and like DLSS, you would imagine a 4070 would outsell an AMD GPU if they're pretty close in price. The AMD has to maintain a pretty sizable price advantage for it to really make sense. So a 4070 Super, let's imagine that comes out at the same $599. I would guess it probably has the same 12 gigabytes of VRAM. Even though we would like 16, I think that would change too much in the GPU. You can imagine it just being a faster 4070 at $599. And obviously the most interesting aspect here would be reducing the price of the existing 4070. Would Nvidia carry both of them side by side? I mean, they've done it before, like this current generation. We had RTX 3000 next to RTX 4000 as new stuff came out, so we don't know if we would completely wipe it out, but potentially that's something that could happen. And if we step it up a little bit, the 4070 Ti, let's say if that gets some type of a super variant, which certainly would make it kind of weird because it would really get a little bit too close to the existing 4080, but obviously with less VRAM. But once again, it could allow Nvidia to do those same little pricing maneuvers, bringing it down maybe, to, even if that's $799, a faster 4070 Ti, the original 4070 Ti can get down to $699 or thereabouts. And then I think that could present itself as an interesting GPU for sure. Even though the 4070 Ti has its VRAM limitations, as a high-end GPU, if you will, I think it's been pretty popular for the sole reason that the 4080 is just way too expensive. So people either buy a 4090 or they get a 4070 Ti. If you want to be in that sort of high end, usually the 4080 they skip over because it's not worth that performance increase for the huge price difference that the 4080 currently has over the 4070 Ti. So 4070 Ti, like some super variant, even though a Ti and super, it's kind of weird having those both together. I'm not even sure if that GPU would exist, or it would just cause way too many issues in the product stack, but it's going to lead us to maybe the more important GPU, which would be the 4080 Super. Now, this was sort of, we had rumors that it was going to be a 4080 Ti, so 4080 Super makes sense as well. Now, the interesting thing here is if this is anything like the rumors of the 4080 Ti at $1199 and with 20 gigabytes of VRAM, that sort of starts to really justify a high-end GPU that maybe gets a little bit closer in performance to the 4090 without really reaching it. And then obviously it's going to allow the existing 4080 to jump way below $1,000. Even during the recent sales, we already saw the 4080 reach as low as $989. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a $999 price for a 4080 going forward after a Super is released, and obviously with sale prices down to as low as maybe like $899 or thereabouts. Then would a 4080 Super at $1199 be too expensive? I think it's still a little bit too expensive, but I think Nvidia sort of has to price it there, especially if they release a 20 gigabyte version, because or else they're not going to have any room to move with the existing 4080. Now, the question then will be, what about the 4090? If a 4080 Super is $400 cheaper and the performance starts to get a lot closer than the 4080, you may certainly start to get some of those high-end buyers going for the 4080 Super instead, especially with the 4090. On occasion, it seems to maybe not sell out, but less models seem to be available as time goes on. So there are a lot of little intricacies with that particular GPU, which still remains popular for a lot of reasons. It's the best, fastest GPU. The people can use it for content creation better than almost anything else. Obviously, even for AI and machine learning and certain applications, it's very useful. So that GPU certainly has its place. That's not just gaming. That's why a 4080, 20 gigabyte Super, if you will, may make some sense as like a real sort of high end, almost like when Nvidia used to have, for example, a 1080 Ti, which was the best gaming GPU, and then a Titan class GPU, which maybe served content creators or workloads like that a little bit better with a little more VRAM and things like that, even though the performance was always very similar. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully, the main thing is that a Super variant reduces the price of current generation GPUs. More performance is always nice, but I think we're really looking at the price to performance here and see if that goes down. All right, guys, so let me know what you think down below. Remember to subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next video.